morning to all of you. I wanted to thank Chantal Prading for giving me this opportunity to speak about this beautiful topic. And I'm going to speak about a brain, a tree, and nature also. So you know that a tree is a friend, old friend of man, because the Homo erectus appeared 1 or 2 million years ago, and the tree was already in place and had been in place for 380 million years. And so the poet would say that it is to look at the beauty of the top of the tree that man stood up. I'm not sure that the scientists would agree, but at least, I mean, what we can say is that since man and tree have a linked destiny, I mean, they have the foot in the soil and the head in the sky. And so this is why maybe in each of us there's a multitude within us, a multitude of trees. I mean, we have a memory full of trees and trees in our bodies, our unconscious memories. I mean, for a million years, I mean, man developed in nature. There was no separate spaces. He was immersed in nature, in contact with the trees, protecting him, nourishing him, heating him, and feeding him also. And then things developed, and after the Industrial Revolution, about 200 years, so a very short time in the history of humanity, man started to get away from the trees. And this proximity which built up in the humanity, remaining in our unconscious memories. But there are also our conscious memories, the famous trees, for example. If I speak about the Buddhist trees where Buddha was born, or the tree under St. Louis would do justice, and then it has a meaning, and also the tree of freedom in our villages, and our personal trees, I mean, where we played around and where we built up small houses, and the ones we planted because one of their child would be born, for example. And all these trees are in our memory, and we also have these memories in our body. For example, the urinary tree with the prostate, for example, and the ureter, and so the other next one with the lung tree, I would say, and then the vascular arborization we have in our body with a series of trees. There's nearly a forest of trees, and if we come closer to the organ we're interested in, that is the brain, you can see that on this section we can find a small tree, the lower part, which is the cerebellum, which we used to call the tree of life. On the right hand side there's an image of the mind, I mean, with markers we injected to highlight the various aspects of the brain, and you can see a very nice arborescence. And so what is true at the macroscopic aspect is also true in the microscopic, and here you have the image of the characteristic cell with the neurons with this big axis moving from the bottom to the top, and then this surface is going to reach other axons to connect with synapses and also build up the brain information circuit. And so the studies show that there was a real fracture of the various dendrite of these cells, that is a fractal disposition, which means that an element is going to, same geometry is going to repeat at a smaller scale. And this is not poetry, it is efficiency. Actually, just like for the trees, I mean, the idea is that such a structure allows a maximum interactions with the environment. And so it will allow a maximum conveyance of information being conveyed, because we have under 100 billion information in our neurons in our brain. And so what seemed to me very important when we say that we are linked to our destiny, the tree destiny is linked to that of man. So vision of nature. So how does the presence of trees and nature interfere with our brains, and what are the effects that trees have on our health? So I hope that I'm not repeating what's been said yesterday. So what are the effects on our health when we go in and visit nature? And so you can see my icon, I mean, is smiling, is green, and because the immersion in nature is good for the body, is good for the psyche, and it's very good for the spirit, mind spirit. And 30 years ago, there were some studies which were rather, not many studies, but now many studies have been carried out, and we have about 25, 30 studies being published every year on the, on the good of of nature on the body. I would like to give you two examples. One study which has been made in prisons, for example, which showed in a practical way that the prisoners and inmates where the cells would have a view on vegetation were less anxious than those who would look over just a concrete. And we had the same observations in hospitals, for example, with having the same pathology. I mean, the healing process is shorter if you have a window overviewing nature. And also we did a lot of studies regarding walks in forest, slow walks in the forest, which have a powerful impact because for 30 minutes, I mean, as long as you don't take your cell phone, but then there will be a reduction of your tension, you'll be less stressed, and also the rate of cortisol is going to be reduced, which is leading to stress usually. So, and these studies were carried out in highly populated countries like Japan, so that they institutionalized, for example, therapeutic forests dedicated to this. And the Shinrin-yoku, for example, the Shinrin-yoku practice, which is the forest bathing, that is going to walk in the forest, just like that, because we noticed how good it was to walk in the forest, and we thought it was good for the population. Now, many other effects also which were developed on the affections, less diabetes, less autoimmune disease, and all these go through various mechanisms. I will not go into details, I mean, endocrinian, and but also the action on the nervous system also. And I also wanted to say a few words regarding the autonomous independent nervous system, which is vegetative nervous system, and we have the nervous system dependent on the brain, but also another one which is independent, which looks after the operation of the whole body. I mean, the digestion, the breathing, and the heart. And this autonomous nervous system is interesting here. I mean, we have two ways: the sympathetic and parasympathetic, where you can react in terms of stress, and parasympathetic, which impacts in and bring quietness. And there is a connection between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. So we have sometimes de-stressing aspect and quietening situations. And so the immersion in nature is also very important for psyche. And there's a very accurate study which showed that 20% of anxiety the anxiety was reduced by 20% with people living in areas with a lot of vegetation. And depression also exists, and but it is less accurate. Now, also regarding the mental aspect, I mean, we easily, are affected by our thoughts. I mean, we keep repeating our thoughts, and which is somehow disturbing. And there are many studies showing that if you walk in the forest, because of the stimulation, because of our perception, then this is going to reduce the way that we keep thinking about things. And now there are many artists and many musicians, for example, Borona will find inspiration in forest, and you'll see that thanks to this poem, it restores the confidence in oneself. And also the tree is very important regarding the immersion in nature, and reaches our spiritual dimension when we are in front of a wonderful olive tree, for example, and then we blossom in a way. We are in kind of harmony, and so we quarrelsome instincts that disappear. I mean, you don't criticize your neighbor anymore. I mean, you just walk and you just observe the beauty of nature. And so through various mechanisms we don't really understand, but we manage to empty from preoccupations and fill ourselves with something more important. And now, how does that work? And maybe we have to go through neuroscience a little bit, which developed quite much over the last few years. And when we look at the tree, when we look at vegetations, and you have perceptions, you have visual perceptions, for example, the color, the shape, auditive perceptions also, the birds, the wind in the trees, and olfactive also. And all these perceptions regarding these receptors in the eye, ear, and nose, they are transformed into signals, and they will be conveyed to the center of the brain, where they will reach the hypothalamus to stimulate the parasympathetic side, and they will bring quietness to our body. But just above this, you have the thalamus, which is the monitoring organ, and this is going to distribute the information to each zone of the brain which has to handle it. And here in purple you can see visual information being handled, in green for the auditive information, and then the zone handling the olfactive aspects. And so what happens? The information is being cut in small bits and pieces, and then they are going to be taken in charge by then cortex activate neurons, and these neurons are going to take all this information and they're going to redistribute it throughout the brain. And so if you look at your tree, for example, from the purple zone, then the activator neurons will convey the information to the frontal zone, and then give the impression of a positive feeling, and also language. I mean, and then you're going to say, well, how beautiful is that tree, and then, or you'll be dazzled, and you'll be deeply moved, and it's not something abstract, it's a kind of physiological reality. And the information will also be conveyed to memory, which means that you're going to remember this information, remember that the tree is beautiful, and you're going to do whatever you can, I mean, so that you can go back to this tree anytime. But also, I mean, in the orbitofrontal zone, that is at the very at the front of the brain, there is the center of beauty, and this center is dedicated, specifically dedicated to beauty, be it artistic beauty or beauty of nature. And the information brought by the activating neuron is going to trigger a circuit. I think Jean-Pascal spoke about it. That is the rewarding circuit. And so all of a sudden, you're going to have an increase of dopamine, which is going to bring a lot of pleasure. Okay, 1 minute left. I thought there was a question. No. So that's it. Now, this is very important. Two things I would like to add. First of all, when we are in kind of ordinary daily life activities, the cortex activating neurons, if they are represented by a light when they are activated, there are some neurons here and there. Now, with a big beauty experience, there will be a huge number of activating neurons. That is, beauty produces something powerful, and we say that it's a kind of excitement and brings fire to your brain. And something also which was discovered quite interesting is that when you are sort of lying without any stimulation, then your brain is not off. There's a kind of default network you can see in red here, and this default network which brings the conscience of your inner self. And so when there's something active, then the external stimulation takes over. So when we have a beauty, then the default network is activated at the same time as the external network. And so this might be explained by what Romain Rolland said, the impression that when you are in nature, you have a bigger conscience of not being separated from what surrounds you. So there would be so many other things to be said, but we're running out of time. So I'm going to conclude, and we're going to end up with another kind of knowledge, because science has made a lot of progress, but there's still a lot of mystery. But maybe another way of apprehending the knowledge of our brain when we are in vegetation, for example, is the immersive experience. Have a walk, go and meet the trees, and be open in a way, because we have to welcome, in a way, and accept beauty. And then you're going to feel this biophilia, this love for trees. And maybe because you are immersed in the world of the living, then you will feel how you are connected to your vital energy, and they sort of restore your vital energy. I mean, this life, which is our treasure, but we tend to forget and disregard. Thank you.